And we're live. I'm Bill DeYoung. This is the Catalyst Sessions, and I would like to introduce you at this moment in time to Ms. Roxanne Fay.
I want to wake in the morning and feel that I want to live, rather than feeling that I simply do not want to die. I want to blow it all up and be completely free. All my life, I have yearned for a thing that I cannot name. I cannot give freedom a name. It is not a name. It is a sound. It is a howling, hungry scream. Let them go. For them, I beat my head against the floor in violent hope that something marvelous will bleed out onto the ground with my brains. Let them go. I could let them go. Leave them. Leave. Leave everything. Leave hope. Leave fear. Leave the substance for shadow. The mysterious route where fear lays in wait at every step, where the wish to turn back is overcome only by the deceptive hope of somehow being accompanied. And what if there is no one there? No spirit that is truly like mine? No one to change the world for?
Hello, Roxanne Fay. How are you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
I'm getting there. I'm knocked out. Tell me what we just saw. That was fantastic. What was that?
Thank you so much. That is actually from the screenplay I wrote called Midnight in Paris, Breton and the Muse. It was part of the Midnight in Paris exhibition at the Dali Museum. And actually those words were spoken by Breton. So they were in the film spoken by my dear friend, Ned Averill Snell.
Yeah,
so we got together and we did this movie with Dr. Hank Hine, and it was kind of an amazing thing.
You know, I was just on my way down to see that when the COVID-19 curtain fell.
Right?
Let me do a little intro here for those of us who are just joining us. I'm so happy to be speaking to a woman I consider a very good friend. This is Roxanne M. Fay, who is a professional actress, one of the very few around here, and one of the many wonderful thespians that live in our area. Roxanne spent her formative years in St. Petersburg, went on to study theater at Florida State University in good old Tallahassee, and then spent a year as an apprentice at the Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater in Jupiter, Florida. Now, a lot of stuff has happened between now and then, but I can tell you this, that Roxanne left her last real-world job as manager of the perfume division of Elizabeth Arden headquarters in Chicago, Illinois in 2013. And she's nodding, so I guess I got that right. She's worked as an actor, director, and stage manager throughout Hawaii, which I want to ask you about because I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. And of course, eventually came home to Florida, and she's been here ever since. You've seen her at Free Fall, you've seen her at Job Site, you've seen her at Oslo, you've seen her everywhere. If you're up north, you've seen her at Bridge Street Theater, you've seen her everywhere there is on film, virtually. Where do I start here? How do we define professional actor? I mean, does that mean, well, I don't really have to go work at the Dairy Queen anymore, or I don't work in an insurance agency? This is all I do. I mean, I get that part, but is it also a matter of this is all I think about night and day? What am I working on? When's my next gig? Is that what a professional actor is?
Well, yeah, I think so. I think, you know, it's professional is just, it's such a, it's not a good word, really. I am considered a professional actor because I am a union actor who makes their living, you know, exclusively in theater. But
yeah,
it doesn't mean that my work ethic or my talent level or my dedication or my passion is any different from anybody who does have a day job and does it at night. It really, you know, it means this is my job. This is what I do. It is my passion. I'm very fortunate that my job is my passion, but it is what I do. And it changes too. You know, I am a professional actor, but am I a playwright? Yes, I'm a playwright. Am I a director? Yes, I'm a director. I'm a teacher, you know. So um, I kind of call myself a theater practitioner. I am a professional creator. That's kind of fun to say, you know,
That's
but
nice. Yeah, I'm sitting next to somebody on an airplane. What do you do? I'm a professional creator. Oh,
creator.
that's cool.
I used to call
Okay,
myself
well,
a practitioner, and
yeah.
that was really funny because everybody was like, "What the heck does that mean?"
Okay, well, you studied theater. It was in the 80s, I think you told me, when you were down working with the great Charles Nelson Riley, who
Yes.
was a teacher down at Burt Reynolds, and an amazing man, and just what a great writer. Did you ever see that autobiographical one-man show that he did a few
I've
years
only
before he
seen
passed?
bits and pieces,
Hmm.
um, videotape wise. Um,
Stunning.
yeah, he was a wonderful actor. I mean, and an award-winning, Tony award-winning actor, and just a funny, dear, smart. Oh my gosh, there was nothing that
Yeah.
ever got past Charles. Nothing. He would direct us in scenes, and we thought we were very clever because we would bring in props and do things like this. And he would nail us. He goes, Why is the lemon here? What? What? The lemon is here. It wants to be in the scene. It's here. Why are you just, you can't, he was never, he would never let us just arbitrarily do something, but he was so kind. And so he scared the hell out of me when I auditioned for the Burt Reynolds Institute.
Mhm.
Um, it was people from, you know, students from all over the world, not the world, but the country, had auditioned for this. And we went into the theater. The Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater was very large, and you had to go out on stage and do your thing and announce your pieces. And this was the year or the era, or whatever you want to call, of Sam Shepard. Fool for Love was,
Oh yeah.
everybody was doing Fool for Love. And I got out there in the darkness out there, and I said, you know, my name is Roxanne Fay. My first piece is from Antigone. My second piece is from Fool for Love. And I hear this voice in the darkness go, "Oh, terrific."
I did Fool for Love once, man. I was the old man, strangely enough.
Were you?
And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
a
And
great
that
play.
was
It was,
that
it
was
was
quite an experience.
hmm,
Um, okay, well, to kind of get back to what I was talking about too, I got to find you on my screen here. Where are you, Rox? Where'd you go? You can still hear me, right? Okay.
I hear you, and
Oh, there you are. Okay. Look, I'm new at this. Okay. They didn't train me to do this. It's just kind of the way it happened. So you're studying theater, you get your degree. Hey, this is great. I'm going to be an actor. But eventually, you get a job hawking perfume.
yeah.
Well, not exactly, but you see my point. It was there. Well, I guess I better get a real job. I can't make it. I mean, what happened in between then?
Well, I lived in New York, and there was no way that you weren't going to have a day job and pay your rent.
Mm,
And I was very, very fortunate. I had a friend of a friend who hooked me up with a guy who rented me his, you know, co-op for $750 a month. And I lived in the middle of Hell's Kitchen. I lived on 44th Street between 8th and 9th, right
wow.
across where the Improv used to be. I was lucky. But you're not going to live there and pay your rent if you don't have a day job. So I started out,
Uh,
I have no skill. So I couldn't be a secretary. I couldn't do any of that stuff. But I got a job. I got hooked up at Bloomingdale's. Um, Bloomingdale's has a huge culinary area, and I used to do food demonstration. And then somebody in the perfume department needed a model, you know, because back in the day you could spray people without asking them, you know, or handing them food. So I did that. I did that
I
at
used to
Bloomingdale's.
punch people like you.
Oh my God. It was, and I ended up working the launch for Calvin Klein's Obsession. And
Wow.
somebody in the company went, and kind of kept me on. And when I left New York, I ended up in Chicago, and I did need, again, a day job to pay my rent. So I went to uh, Carson Perry Scott, which was our, you know, Marshall Fields and Carson Perry Scott were our department stores there. And I
Okay.
hooked up with Elizabeth Arden, the Elizabeth Arden Corporation. I was, yes, I was their representative in the suburbs of Chicago for a very long time. I left the company in 2002. So since 2002, I have not done anything that you would call a day job. And it was just a decision that I made. Um,
Is that also making a decision, Roxanne, that I may well starve, but I'm going to do this?
yeah, yeah. I knew that I was leaving Chicago. I was married, and the marriage ended. And I knew I didn't want to stay in Chicago because it's a very big city, but it's a very small town. I love Chicago. I love Chicago. I have some of my dearest friends and talented, amazing people
Mm-hmm.
work with there. And but I knew I wasn't going to stay, so I went to Hawaii. I thought, how far away can I get from this situation that I have divorced myself from without actually
Mm-hmm.
leaving the country? And I went back to Hawaii. I had been in Hawaii um, on and off for 3.5 years on a cruise ship. I was a singing and a dancing on a
Oh
cruise.
boy. You got
Yeah.
pictures of this?
Oh,
Someday you got to show me.
I do, but
Wow.
you know, woof. Yeah.
So Hawaii beckons.
Yeah, I went back. I wanted to live on land in Hawaii. While my favorite places in the islands are on the Big Island of Hawaii, Hilo and Kona, and the Volcanoes National Park is there. But if you were going to work, especially if you're going to try to work in theater or film, you had to be in Oahu, you had to be in Honolulu. And I am a SAG after actor. I'm a SAG actor. So one of the first things that I ended up being able to do over there was they were filming Lost in Hawaii. And so I ended up doing a couple of gigs for them on season 1 and season 2. Nothing that if you blinked, you would see me, but that was fun and I enjoyed it. But they have really amazing theater in Honolulu. Diamond Head Theater is well over 100 years old now. And Manoa Valley Theater, I live very close to Manoa Valley. It's very close to my heart. Windward Theater, there was just some great work being done there. I mean, just some of the best work I've seen or been a part of.
But you came back to Florida.
Yeah.
Ultimately. Why?
Well,
First of all, who leaves Hawaii? Second of all,
expensive. It's very expensive, and I didn't want to have a day job. I didn't want to go back to that experience of having a day job. I originally was enrolled in the University of Hawaii in the graduate program, but I kind of exhausted the possibilities there very quickly. I was a Western theater graduate student, and really at the first semester, I was like, oh, look, I've taken all the Western theater courses that there are. Great. But one of my teachers was a wonderful man, British, had worked in the RC, had understudied Olivier, and he was wonderful, and working with him was just amazing. And some of his students actually started the Hawaii Shakespeare Company. So I was actually able to do a production of The Winter's Tale while I was there. And we did a lot of what gets done in Hawaii sometimes will be not translated, but flavored with the local patois, with the pidgin. And, once upon a Midsummer Night's Dream, brother, kind of thing.
The patois. Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful place to live. It's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to go back someday.
Well, again, you came back to Florida, though, and I got to make this connection.
I came back to Florida.
You have family here, obviously. And
my mom and my daddy were here. My mother was getting ready to have a hip replacement. So I came back expressly with the idea that I would be here for a while until mom was okay, and then I would go back to Hawaii. My mother was fine. Like in 48 hours, she was running around and stuff. She was great. But I decided to stay because there were these new possibilities. And when I was a kid, there really wasn't a lot of theater in St. Pete. No. Yeah. I mean, I did some great, fun work really in my formative years at what was then St. Petersburg Little Theater, which is now City Theater, with Susan
Sure. Oh
Flood.
yeah, they do great stuff. Did you work at the Golden Apple or the Showboat or any of those places?
My very first professional show after
Hey,
Burt Reynolds. My first professional show was my final show at Burt Reynolds. We worked there 52 weeks and we were awarded our equity cards for it. So our very first equity contract was our final show there, which was Annie. But my first show that I had to go audition for and was at the Showboat Dinner Theater. I played Rosemary in How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
speaking of Charles Nelson Riley,
Charles Nelson.
who won a Tony for that. Wow.
Yeah. And
Dow Sherwood Showboat Dinner Theater.
yes, yes, and Dow was still alive. Dow was still alive. And
Yeah.
that block red wallpaper, the Whorehouse New Orleans wallpaper, it was awesome.
Those are the days. Those are the days. No, and those, American Stage was here, but and I remember going to Oslo maybe when I was 10 or something. They dragged me, and
Well, Oslo is, and still is for many people. It was our mecca. We all wanted to end up at the Oslo, and it wasn't until I moved to New York that I was cast by the Oslo. I moved to New York, and one of the last things I did before I left New York was the first and last national tour of their Theater for Young Audiences. We did a Southeastern tour of these two shows. And then I didn't work for the Oslo again until last year.
well, things are different now than they were in those days, and I wanted to ask you. It seemed you're a job site, you're at Free Fall, you're in other places, you do all these one-woman shows, which is I want to talk with you about. But I wanted to ask you, you've talked a lot in other interviews, including with me, about the old bugaboo of actresses of a certain age. And maybe there aren't as many cool roles. Or like you had said, well, I want to do this Joan Didion thing, or there are certain you have such an interest in history and theatrical history and theology and all kinds of things. I wondered if that is why you said, screw it, I'm going to write something for myself. Was that the reason you started doing those things?
Well, the very first thing I wrote that I ended up performing, I wrote in Chicago. No one here has seen it. It's called Ugly. Maybe someday I'll pull that out, but it's extremely personal, and it was very, very connected to what I was going through at the time. But the first thing that I ever did as a solo performance here was called Home Fires Burning.
Right.
And
in my notes.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. The first line of the play is, mostly when I see you coming, I just spit on the ground. And I was at an audition that I was monitoring the audition, meaning I was letting the people come in and out, because we were casting a production for Blue Scarf Collective, which was a company I started with Heather Jones and Alicia Harris.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there, and I had a pad of paper, and I wrote that line, and I kind of, and she really literally came out of nowhere, Sister May. And we just decided to, at one point, let's do some of our own stuff. And Heather had a one-woman show that she had written that Joanna Sitz performed, called Hoarder's Child. And we were going to do Home Fires Burning, which is originally two actresses, because it's two different vignettes. And unfortunately, the young woman I had cast in the other vignette has adult onset asthma, and she landed in the hospital. So nobody ever saw Everlasting Moon, which is the second show. They just saw Paradise Whiskey. So it was Ann Morrison, whom I met at the Burt Reynolds Center Theater.
Yeah.
And her partner at Sarah Solo, who told me, no, Roxanne, this is a solo piece, and you need to do it as a solo piece. And they helped me adapt it. They directed it for me, and then they hooked me up, and I ended up taking the show to the United Solo Festival in New York City.
Is that a terrifying prospect, though? Oh, wait a minute. I have no other actors here. I have nobody to bounce off of. If I drop a line, nobody will help me. Terrifying, right?
If you drop a line, nobody else knows.
Well, that's a good point, I guess.
No, I actually, No, because the engagement with the audience always puts you in a conversation with
Mm.
another human being, another entity. And I find it extremely challenging and really rich and really rewarding and really so much more of a give and take than people think it is. It's really not about one person on stage. It's about a conversation between you and me, you know.
Can we look? I want to look at a photograph here real quick. Let me see if I yeah. Hold on now. You said my internet may just crash. This may not work, but I'm going to try it anyway.
All right.
There. Okay. That one. Let's see. Boom. What are we looking at here?
Oh, wow. That's that is a play called Dream Child, The Trial of Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Yeah, I work a lot with the Dolly Museum, and they have been very kind to me over the years and let me
Yes.
create things to sort of enhance exhibits they have going on. And at one point, there was a wonderful exhibit about Walt Disney and Salvador
Yeah.
Dali. And one of the things that they had in common was just a fierce love and interest in the Alice in Wonderland story. And I wanted to do so. I didn't want to do sort of a Walt and Salvador talking kind of thing. So I wrote this play about the woman who was a little girl, Alice Little, and who she was, and found, really studied who she was, who Lewis Carroll was, Professor
Mhm.
Dodgson really was, and the nature of their relationship and how it. And the fact is that she lived to be 82 years old, and she was the most famous little girl in the world for a while. And then she really kind of slipped into oblivion, and they would kind of pull her out of the mothballs every once in a while when something important was happening, like the centennial of Dodgson's birth, which is, of course, posthumous for him. But it was a very big deal. And they brought Alice to New York on a very large steamship called the Berengaria, which was a sister ship to the Titanic. I'm sorry, to the Queen Mary. And uh, brought her to New York, to Columbia, gave her an honorary degree. And so I set the play. She's in the stateroom in the ship on her way to New York, anticipating what's going to happen, because she's actually going to get to see the original manuscript that he had given her, the gift
Wow.
that he had given her when she was a child. She sold it. She had to sell it in her later years to pay the
So,
bills. And
but you
why.
were able to imagine again how this. How did she ever write any of this down, or was this dramatic license? The
No,
things that.
there were other people who documented things and wrote it down. He was not a great diarist. He was, but his diaries were redacted
Hmm.
by family members.
Let me find another photograph here, poking around. Because you were or are, I guess, a Hawthornden Writing Fellow, and
I
I know what that means. I have a vague memory of what that means. I was hoping that you would explain it to the folks at home if I can figure out what I'm doing here.
Hawthornden is the name of a 13th century castle in
Y-
Scotland.
Yes.
And I submitted my work and my proposal of what I was going to be working on, and they chose me to be a Hawthornden Writing Fellow. And I was there in 2016. This is what I wrote. Rise to mine.
Yeah. Hey, watch this.
That's yes. That's
Yeah, there's Thrice to Mind. Tell us about this. This is a cool one.
This is very cool. I found out, well, kind of knew, but went into discovery of the woman who was the real Lady Macbeth. We know very, very little about her, except that she was indeed real. She was indeed married to Macbeth. She's part of super pure royal blood from the original kings that came over and made Scotland what it is. Um, and the reality of their life is really, really so much more interesting than fiction. Although there was so little known, I don't know what the nature of their marriage was like. I know that Macbeth actually reigned for 17 years in a period of great social justice and prosperity, and they were very well liked, and they endowed, and took care of their people and enacted some really terrific laws and stuff. So this whole idea of Shakespeare's Lady Macbeth, this evil, you know, woman
Yeah.
with ambition, and the husband who was ambitious but weak, and that is not who they were. But I did go back and find out a little bit more about where Shakespeare was coming from and why he wrote them that way. It was very political because the sovereign on the throne at the time was James I, and his bloodline traces directly back to the Macduff line. So Macduff had to be the hero.
You've done Thrice to Mind. I think you did it at Studio 620 here, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Yeah, it premiered in New York in August of last year, and then I brought it back home. I did it for Urbanite Theater.
Oh
Um,
yeah, Sarasota, right? Yeah,
yeah, I did
yeah.
it nights at the Studio 620, and then in January we did it as a benefit for Tampa Repertory Theater in Tampa.
I have a couple more pictures I'd like to leaf through as we come into our last couple of minutes already. So this one's tiny for some reason, but we'll look at it anyway. Hold on. Keep talking, Roxanne. Riff for me, man.
Yeah,
Because I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, that would be. This is a tiny. I don't know why it's a tiny photo, but this is a play called Here, over at Job Site.
yeah.
Tell us about this. Was a fascinating show.
Amazing piece of work written by
Topher Payne's thing, right?
Taylor Mack. Huh?
Oh, that's right, Taylor Mack. Oh, the same kind of name. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, that young man is Robert Gabriel, who's a wonderful actor, and it's just an amazing story. That really, the great thing about doing Here, this is something that Job Site chose to do in the wake of a loss of their own. They had to separate themselves from a particular playwright who really was not a victim of the Me Too movement, he was exposed by it. And so a play originally going in the season by that author was excluded, and Job Site had been looking at Here. It was something that they wanted to do, and I think it is probably in Tampa that this is the one company that could really do this show.
Yeah.
And we had so many people from the LGBTQ community, the trans community, come to see this show, and the great thing about it was that they would stay, that they wanted to talk, they wanted to engage. That the last act of the play is always what happens after that comes down. And to have people say to
yeah, exactly.
have people say to you, I have never seen myself on stage before. The responsibility that we really have, and I believe that we have to let all people know that we see you and you belong in the consciousness of who we are as a people. I mean, it's and that said, it's an extremely difficult show to watch because it is rough.
Right.
But I screamed and yelled and knew I couldn't do this role, and it was all going to be awful, and I was never going to. And it turned out to be one of the most rewarding experiences.
Yeah, and you also did. In recent memory, you were in the Fantastics at Free Fall, which is something I wanted to mention. And you played Henry, the old actor, sort of a gender switch thing again, and. Was that fun? I mean, that's like an old warhorse. How do you breathe something new into something like the Fantastics?
Oh, well, you put it in Eric Davis's hands.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. It was hard because we all had to, well, not all, but four of us had to manipulate puppets. And I've never worked with a puppet, but we had a puppet master, James Silson, who is actually the puppet master for Walt Disney World. Come in and give us puppet boot camp, and I just an amazing.
There are such things in theater, folks. Puppet boot camp.
Boot camp. I am attracted. I know I'm not sure. I think there's a real duality that I am discovering in myself as I have matured and come a little bit more into myself. That not that I am one or the other thing, but that I believe both sides, male and female, exist in all of us at all times.
Hmm.
But I am so drawn, and when I look at my bucket list, somebody asked me the other day what my bucket list was like, and I was, my Shakespeare bucket list is Shylock.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so cool.
And
Yeah.
here, and so it's a little odd, and I've been fortunate to play some of those roles. David Jenkins cast me as Prospero in The Tempest. I got to play Feste, which is one of my favorite roles of all time, and Touchstone and As You Like It, and I'd like to play Jake Wees in As You Like It someday. But it's not that the women that he writes aren't substantial and wonderful. I happen to be drawn to that male essence of Shakespeare's work.
Sure. Your Prospero, that was a brilliant show too, over at Job Site.
It was such a beautiful piece of work. I loved it. I was scared.
Can I ask you, because my clock is shaking its hands at me, and I want to ask you briefly, you are involved in Job Site's ongoing, we're still here, COVID, remember us, send us money, we loved you, you love us kind of thing. Socially distanced soliloquies, I wrote that down. Is that still happening?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think there are 7 socially distant soliloquies, and there's also a thing called One from the Vaults, where the artistic associates kind of go back and trace their history with the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm very, very fortunate. We only got to do 2 performances of Doubt, but I got to share that stage with Andresia and Caitlin and David and Summer Bowenkamp, who directed it, and it just, that moment when a show just goes, that's it.
Yeah.
Second preview, David and I were sitting at ABC Studios in Tampa Friday morning, the 13th of March, which is our opening.
I remember him telling me this story. Yeah.
And while we were waiting to do our interview, the Straz made the decision to cease.
I'm looking forward to that one in the fall. I mean, Doubt is such a wonderful, dramatic,
amazing.
Beautiful for people. We are just about out of time.
We didn't talk about Mayday.
I want to say that, Roxanne, for anybody who noticed and watched our video preview, Roxanne has been involved with the production of Mayday, which is this one-man show that I wrote. Because of her, I think you're on that side of my screen, I had the sort of nerve to do it, and hopefully in the fall you'll be able to see it.
I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to do the entire piece and getting it up on its feet and doing what we really envisioned for it.
The video never came up live, but I think a link appeared and people were able to watch it. And yeah, I'd already seen it and I watched it too.
Yeah, I have it on my computer and I watched it.
So we'll be back with that in the fall. Doubt will be back. I know Doubt will be back. I have no doubt that Doubt will be back.
I'm glad. That would mean a great deal to me. I would love to have that happen.
Roxanne Fay, always a pleasure.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to see you, my friend.
And we'll see you sooner than later, I suppose.
I hope so.
All right. Take care, my dear.
All right, honey.
Bye-bye.